Hello and welcome to Skeindeer Knits. My name is Ellie and I am a Norwegian living and knitting in London, and you can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as Skeindeer. And most important of all, it is the Ravelry group Skeindeer Knits, which is by far the best place to get in touch with me in this little community, get help with patterns and Norwegian knitting and colour work. There is stuff for that everywhere in that group. It's a good group. I am sat here enjoying myself another cup of tea, David's tea again, in a mug that I got at Vogue Knitting Live in New York. It says, "Snowy days, woolly nights." I know, it's just great. I think I got it at the Annie & Co booth, but don't quote me on that. Welcome, and of course welcome back if you are a returning viewer, and welcome to new viewers. I hope you will like this funny little podcast. It's a knitting podcast. Knitting is all I do, and that's just what I sit here and talk about for ages and ages and ages every week. And I think it's super cool that people are coming back to listen to that and knit along with me. So yeah, speaking of knit along, there are a couple of those running. The one that probably gets me the most excited right now is the year-long Knit Along 2018, which is, well, there's more on that in the group as well. But yeah, we're basically aiming to make 6 pairs of colour work mittens with some allowances in the year of 2018. So that's 1 colour work mitten a month, and that's doable, isn't it? So I'm having a lot of fun with that, and it nicely overlaps with the year of the mitten, the basket of mittens, and the ANH mitten cal. So hop on that. And then there is the Merriest knit along, which is where we're making the Merriest sweater, which is that cushion, except it's a sweater. And that, I think, pretty sure, yes, it will wrap up at the end of March. So you have a lot of time to knit your Merriestes there. I kind of disappointed myself and everyone by not knitting any Merriestes, but I have a lot of Merriest stash, shall we say, so there will be a Merriest at some point on this podcast, I'm sure. I really want to make myself a classic cardigan in Hillesborg Usk yarn, so, and then I actually counted my skeins, and I'm pretty sure I have enough for 2 cardigans. The other, or the third I should say, knit along is the Break the Rules cal, which we are running for the entirety of February, and that is where you break the rule of recommended yarn weight. So you knit a pattern, look up the yarn weight they say you should use, and don't use it. I know. So that's a bit of a ridiculous rule. It's very open, no deadline, no WIP requirements, etc. Just read more on it in the Ravelry group. I'm thinking, is it too short? Because I'm really enjoying the conversation that's going on right now. It seems like a lot of people are getting engaged, so I'm thinking it could be worthwhile actually to let it go on for longer. There is no finishing requirement, but I think it would be a shame to shut up the conversation sooner than necessary. So let me know what you think about that. But I think maybe that is worth considering just for the fun of it, really. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank you all so much for receiving my Transcendent sock pattern so well. I am kind of feeling a bit bad that I didn't pitch the pattern very well when I launched it here, because I made it sound like it wasn't finished. It is completely finished and done, and I'm very happy with it. The perfectionist issues I was having was my own photography. My test knitters photography is totally up to date with the pattern. It's already and done and out there, and the discount code is still valid. I think it's gonna expire soon, but should be valid still. So yeah, you can still get that. And yeah, I just want to thank people who took the plunge and bought the pattern, so thank you so much. That's been a lot of fun to see, and I'm hoping to see some cast on socks soon, because that is by far the most exciting thing about launching a pattern, is starting to see the projects pop up and seeing the socks in different colors. And I forgot to mention also that you can get kits at Ovi's Etc's yarn shop. So I believe she has a Etsy store, and you can get kits for that. And that is the kit that I used to make my socks. And it's one of those very rare cases where you could get a nylon yarn that is what we call rustic. It's a bit of a vague term. I'm not sure how I landed on that. But it means non-superwash, sticky, woolly, proper sheep wool. This is a Dutch breed, and it's sturdy enough for socks, but also very, very appropriate for color work. That is why Saskia, who has the Overset Setra yarn, is one of my favorite yarn dyers, because she uses impeccable bases and makes lovely colors, lots of good solids that are perfect for color work. And I'm working up some other stuff in her yarn as well, so we'll have a look at that in a bit. But yes, you can get kits. And I did nudge her as well and was like, did you see my test knitters grey socks? Yeah, I think people are going to want that. So maybe there will be a grey kit as well. I'm not sure. I'm not in a position to make demands there. I was very fortunate to get to use her yarn, so we can only hope. And I'm also thinking about running another cal. I know I'm not, but I'm thinking maybe like a Skeindeer sock along or something, because I am launching a sock collection with 6 patterns soon, and I have 3 patterns out already. But that's just a thought that flew by right now. I don't know how I feel about that, but let me know, I guess. So I think it's time that we start talking about finished objects. Can you see it? Can you see it? I am wearing it. It's not every time that I actually wear my finished objects on camera, most of all because they're not always garments, but also because I run very warm when I record, and that's probably going to happen again today as well. I just realized I never switched on my studio lights. What? See, now you get to watch the cardigan in full color. The light is a bit blue, that is a shame, but that's just how it is. It makes it a lot more possible to do this podcast when light is very unpredictable from the outside. So there we are, this is the cardigan. It's the Miss Rachael yoke, and let me tell you a little something about the Miss Rachael yoke. It's a bottom-up sweater, and this is a top-down cardigan. So yeah, I did a load of modifications on this. I'm gonna see if I can try to remember them all. So yes, I cast on just below the neck rib, because that is the thing I find a bit hard to estimate, how many stitches, how tight, what needle size, that kind of thing. You don't want to choke, but you don't want it to be too open. It's a nice kind of weird balance thing that I'm still working out. So I decided to cast on just below the rib, have a provisional cast on where I could pick up the neckline later and wing the rib a bit then. And then I worked in some short rows. That's what I did when I picked up those stitches later. I worked up some short rows here, and then I did the rib. Hindsight tells me I'd prefer more short rows here. There's not that many rows, but I was a bit hesitant because it wasn't something I had a huge experience with. So yeah, gosh, that light is really cold. Maybe I can get some warmer light, studio lights. I don't know. Thoughts I'm having. Cardigan. I get sidetracked a lot. If you're new to this podcast, it might as well be something you need to get used to right away if you're gonna keep watching. Yes, and then got on the color work. I've used a combination of PT2 and fenol yarn, which just so happens to have now been merged, so I guess that goes out the window. But yeah, I've used both. That's PT2 right here, that's some PT2 and fenol, and that's fenol, and there you have it. And the main color is fenol. All the colorways and stuff can be found on my Ravelry project page. I put a lot of information there so that you don't have to ask, and then it gets there and it's like it all works out. And also it's good because I forget a lot. It's a nice overview. I love my Ravelry pages. I mostly just make them for myself, but I appreciate that they are hugely helpful for other people, so that's a very win-win thing. So yes, knitted down, and I done the sleeves, and then I done the body, and I got to here and I was like, I have a weird feeling, I'm not sure. So I gave it a good soak and dry, and then it was like, whoa, it's really deep down here, what have I done? And I done some short row shaping just under here until this side on the back, and found that was adding too much length. The short row stuff would have added a great way to lift up the neckline a bit more, but it was adding too much length, and I didn't have room for that length, if that makes sense. It will make it too saggy down here, and that would constrict my movement, and that's not good. So I cut my cardigan in half. I put all the stitches up here on the needles, and then the stitches below here on the needles. Yeah, there was that much space here that I could do that and remove a chunk in between, and then seam it together with a good old Kitchener stitch. That took a while, and it was worth it. The seaming did show until I now have given it a second soak, and it totally doesn't show anymore. So my tension there was pretty good, I think. And the sleeves were actually too long after that soak, but now they are not. Now they're just right. So they pulled back somehow. I guess maybe I was hanging it to dry the first time and that would have made them longer, and then they just contracted again when I did it the second time, I guess, I suppose. And yes, so then I wore on the needles for a long time. I didn't really touch it, I don't know why, just didn't really feel it, and kept going back and forth about where to start the rib, for the waist, I guess the hip. Let me just show you. This is how it fits on me right now. So I was like, I'd started it here, and then I tried it on, like, I don't know if I want to start the rib that high up, it looks a bit weird, but I want the vintage look, right? But in the end, I went against it and I kept doing stockinette further down. Then I did the rib, and yes, I am a lot more happy with this. There are also some waist fitting here, so there are 2 seams on each side. I could have just done one more increase on each side, but instead I decided to do 1 seam here, one decreased, I should say, one side, and I did the same thing for the back, so I get like 2 kind of incision points there. I'm not sure if that was a good call, but it seems to work out, so there you go. And I don't know if I have much else to say. Button bands were actually quite a joy to make. Sometimes my button bands don't turn out the best, but this time actually I just got very anal about it and made sure they had the exact same number of stitches on both sides. And yeah, the one under is a tad bit longer, just by a couple of rows, because I just find that that makes me a bit happier, because then if this happens, then actually it's still likely to overlap, because this is longer and you're not going to see through. Does that make sense? Yeah. Not sure where I got the buttons. I just found them when I started looking for buttons. I found the ones I had planned to use, but I figured these went a lot better with the colours. They're kind of repeating something from over here, and so that actually went really well with the overall aesthetic. So there we are. They're very nice and floral. I attached them with the same yarn I knitted with. I know that's not going to be the strongest option, and given I don't know where the buttons are coming from, that is a bit risky, but I'm just gonna go with that. And yeah, if you don't know, like, I mean, how, I suppose you're wondering, like, how did I know how to do all these things? A lot of it comes from a lot of colourwork yoke experience from the past. But the main thing is that colourwork yokes are highly modifiable. There's such a huge portion of them that is just stockinette. So really, once you've done a top-down yoke, you can do what you want. There are no rules anymore. You can decrease, you can increase, you can change your needle size, you can do you. So I'm definitely taking a lot of that wisdom into my up and coming pattern, which is hung over this chair very casually, knit in the same yarn, and yeah, that helps a great deal. And this pattern also lends itself a lot to changing whether it's top down or bottom up, because the increases are happening between the colour work rather than as part of the colour work. Same thing that I did here, so that is very helpful as well. So it's just a deceptively easy sweater to knit, both of them. Colourwork yokes in general, I want to say. I think a lot of people are discovering that right now and are having like, whoa, I can do this. It's great. So yeah, I really enjoy the knit of this cardigan, even though it took a lot longer than I thought it would. I thought I was going to be done by May, and once I realised it became a bit of a UFO, and then I thought I can have it done for autumn, because look how autumnal it is, right? Look at those colours. I mean, this is a Kate Davies design, and thus Kate Davies colour combination that I try to replicate by using Norwegian yarns, and I did sort of succeed, but they are a lot more stark, these colours, and yeah, very autumnal. But I didn't finish for the autumn either, so then I had plans to finish it for Christmas and January, and then eventually I did finish. I just kind of had to force myself a bit. I don't know why. It's been a pleasure to knit, to be honest. Yeah, and it's done, and I love it, and it's my Edinburgh cardigan. I have 2 Edinburgh cardigans. I don't know why I decided to do that. There were 3 festival days, so it's kind of arbitrary. I just thought this one will be amazing to wear when I'm going to the Kate Davies talk on Saturday, and the other cardigan is going to tick the box of the Blacker Cow, because Blacker Yarns have the podcast lounge. They are sponsoring it, so I guess the deal is that those of us who are media personalities in knitting are drawing the people in, and they come to the Blacker booth and see all the amazing Blacker yarns, and so it's kind of a win-win situation there. And they are doing the Blacker knit along for the Edinburgh Yarn Festival, though it's also open to those who are not taking part in the festival, and there's more information on that both from Blacker Yarns and from the Knit British podcast. And I did take part because I had a huge heap of Cornish tin that I got through 2 swaps, and I was very fortunate to have 6 skeins altogether, and I used 5 of them to make this amazing Siri cardigan, and it knitted itself. Like, how on earth did I finish it this quickly? I have no idea. But there we are, and I actually wore this at Unravel this weekend, which we will certainly get back to. It's hard to show off the texture because the tripod is kind of acting like a shadow in front of the light here, but yeah, look at that texture. Ooh, yes. And I got these buttons for it when I was in Norway, so I tried it on with the cardigan and like saw that I liked these colors with the cardigan. And I realized I'm very kind of conservative with my buttons. I've always been, I think. I don't like colored buttons, I don't like plastic buttons. I really only like dark wooden buttons and to some extent metal buttons. I also have some grey wooden buttons, and yeah, I have a very limited range of buttons that I like for my style. Obviously people like what they want, but that's just me. I found to be, yeah, a bit restrictive there. So like, let's show you. I also have, you know, this cardigan that I just finished, again as the wooden theme, and there we are. Oh god, can you tell I planned this? Yeah, so I know what I like, and they're not the cheapest. Buying buttons in Norway is great because you get so many lovely beautiful buttons there that I have a hard time finding elsewhere, but they are not cheap. So it's like I always estimate my cardigan plans and sweater plans by going, oh, but yarn isn't that expensive and it's gonna be a cardigan that costs that much, and then I'm done. I'm like, and now I have to add that same amount again for buttons. But yeah, Siri cardigan by Linnea Öhman. Again, this is a Kate Davis design. So this is an DK weight yarn, but I upped my needle size so that it's kind of more in the worsted weight area in terms of gauge. So I used a 18 stitch gauge, even though the pattern says to use 20, which meant that I could make myself a medium that was quite roomy still. And so yeah, there's a lot of positive ease here, which I've become more and more attracted to, just because they're more comfortable. I've also taught myself ways to make them flattering, even though they do have a bit of positive ease. Because the thing is, you can do what I call waist fitting, even though they have a positive ease, because they don't have to be tight to be waist fitted. Like this one has waist fitting, but there's a lot of room, but it still kind of wants to gravitate towards my womanly shapes. But yeah, it doesn't stick to it in a way, but it doesn't also bulge out. Does that make sense? So I did the same thing here. I showed you last time. There's that little subtle little seam here, which doesn't give the impression of being fitted, but it has that gravitation towards my waist. So yeah, it's about the same length as Miss Rachael, if not a tad bit shorter. Still working out where my preferred point here is, but this one seems to work out quite nicely. I've started more and more to want the rib to be after my waist, on stop at my waist. But I feel differently about sweaters again, and I feel like it can be a bit shorter. I don't know. You can go either way. And yeah. The Cornish tin yarn gave me a little bit of grief. So this is Cornish tin 2. It was Blacker Yarn's 10th anniversary yarn and has a lot of different fibres in it. There's like Shetland yarn and Jacob and mohair and alpaca and merino and who knows what else. And I got a bit worried that this wasn't very steekable. But as you can see, I have taken the plunge. I did steek it. For a bit of context, I fell ill this weekend. I'm not sure what happened. It was actually on Thursday. I was out with a friend. We walked and walked, and then it was midnight, and they dropped me off here, back, and 5 minutes past midnight, I had severe aches in my arms and legs, and I was shaking. I was so cold, and I had a fever. Those tonsils, they have to go. They just can't, I can't. Bad tonsils, bad. So I couldn't knit because my arms were hurting. and I slept through most of Friday. But later on Friday I found that I could sit upright, my arms, I could work them. I didn't knit, but I could cut, I could sew in some ends and some buttons, and there I had 2 finished cardigans all at once. Just, that was quite a sight. I just hung them over my chair like I always do, and I just admire them. I'm like, I have 2 finished cardigans. There's something that happens to them when you have those button bands with buttons on. They just get a completely different look. It's like they transform. It's very rewarding, and especially having 2 at once. But yeah, let's get more in depth about this thing again. I have a way of putting 8 buttons into all my cardigans. I don't know if it's a bit overkill, but I like it. Seems to do the trick. I have talked about how I have modified this before, but let's just do it quickly. I added short rows, which is from a project page on Ravelry, which comes with an extra chart that you can plug into the pattern. Especially good if you're doing this small to medium, but it should be possible to work it to the other sizes as well. I changed the SSK, or the knit 2 together twisted based stitches to an SSK based stitch, which becomes quite a difference if you compare these up here that look a bit messy to the ones further down here that are very streamlined. It's a world of a difference. I'm so glad I didn't keep doing this throughout, because that when they're twisted they don't look mirrored from this, for this side, the ones that are pointing in the opposite direction that are knit 2 based together. So yeah, very glad I went for these, so they look nicer in my opinion. And yes, I keep going back and forth from topic to topic. One modification was of course that I was knitting this in the round, and that gave me that grief with the Cornish tin yarn that I was talking about. And I steeked it. But I did express in the last episode here that I was very concerned about the steeking, whether it would hold up, that the yarn was sticky enough or not. It may be. I had someone post, and thank you so much, that they had good experience with steeking this yarn without reinforcing. I say without reinforcing. The crocheting is not a way of reinforcing it, it's a way of making it attractive in a way, sort of. It adds a bit of reinforcing as well, but it's the yarn that has the reinforcement, not the crochet thing as such. But what did I do in the end? Yes, let's get to that. So this is the inside. You see that? This is the steek thing, and you can see I didn't actually leave them just hanging there with the frills up like I usually do. Instead, before I cut, I did the back stitches that a lot of you recommended, and that was really helpful. So right next to where I would cut, those stitches that I had actually worked in the crochet stuff on the side of it, so I'd worked in back stitches. I went into the yarn, in like the actual thread, went through the needle, and then did the back stitch through each outer leg of that stitch, so the very edge was like properly secured. Obviously that could unravel and that yarn could just come through. I'm explaining this very poorly. Unless you know about backstitching and what it means to do it through yarn, then that's probably not going to make any sense. So before that had a chance to happen, if that were to happen, I then cut and folded in this steek. So it's actually, I think it's not just folded in once but twice, so it's kind of double in here, and I seamed it down. It was a bit of a pain as well because I didn't really seem to want to, and it became sort of 3D and stands up like that, but mostly I managed to make it stay down and stay flat. So it's not beautiful, but it certainly is a lot prettier than how I normally leave it, so well done me for doing that. How can I show you the other side as well? So if that makes sense, you can see that little kind of fat line going through here, and that is where I folded in the steek, the cutting edge that I hid away by folding it double, sewing it on, and it doesn't seem to show on the front. Like there is some puckering along here, but that really doesn't bother me at all. I'm very happy with this result, and I don't think that is going to come undone. There are like several obstacles. One is the slight stickiness of the yarn, one is the fact that I added some crochet that is at least not securing, but it's an obstacle. It's the back stitching through the stitches with the same yarn, and then is the fact that it's folded over and sewn in. I don't think the yarn is going to be that acrobatic ever, so I'm pretty sure this will hold up forever. I'm very confident about that, and it's been fun to try out and know that I can do this by hand. I'm not sure I would have had this been fingering weight, because it would have taken quite a bit longer because you do have more rows there. But for this very quick knits with fairly thick DK, yeah, totally worth doing. And yeah, it's so beautiful, and the color, I'm taking that I don't have to tell you how I feel about this color. It's pretty amazing. And so yeah, both of these are my Edinburgh cardigans. I did take this up for a spin on Unravel, but I'm pretty sure I can still call it my Edinburgh cardigan. I need to get some good photos up so I could take part in the Black Girl Knit Along, and this needs to join the UFO cal that Amy's Little Kingdom and Sticky Therapy are doing together, because this certainly qualifies, I should think. And yeah, 2 finished cardigans. Can we like do a photo of some sort, just like, it's finished, it's finished, it's finished. Okay, I'm done being a bit silly. No, I'm not. Also, by the way, thank you so much for your funny messages on my post on Instagram the other day, where I kind of marked the 20-year anniversary of my longest friendship ever. I do think some got the wrong idea and think that's more than friendship between us. That is not the case. We've been friends for 20 years. That would be very odd. Plus he has a boyfriend, so that would also make things a bit complicated. So yeah, thank you for your fun and kind words. I think it's really quite extraordinary how long we've known each other and the weird phases we've been through as, you know, the awkward teenage years. And we basically just spent most of our childhood like doing like odd stage performances for school and doing what essentially maybe qualifies as drag shows. Not sure, can you imagine 9-year-olds doing drag? I don't know. That's what we did. Yeah. I never got him to knit though, but he's fairly knit worthy. I just kind of jokingly put in that he was an 8 out of 10 in knit worthiness. It's kind of true. Sometimes he will be like very frank and we're like, that didn't fit, I'm never wearing that. And other times he will wear it to death. Like some colourwork mittens I did of him for him that I don't even think they're that great. He wears them all the time. And same with the socks that I did for him the Christmas before, the previous Christmas or whatever. Yeah, so yeah, pretty knit worthy, I'd say. But yeah, I was going to talk about works in progress. It's all knitting themed. I can always tie it back to knitting. And so I did decide to knit a little pattern in honour of my late nan. And it seems to have taken a bit longer than I thought it would, but I'm using amazing Ovis etc. yarn. It lives in this bag I got from Kettle Yarn here in London. So let's just look at this yarn. I mean, that is, it's just this fantastic blend that if I'd read it on paper I wouldn't have thought that I would actually like it, but I really truly do. And so the project, if I can call it that, is a design I'm working up. I call them farmor because that's what I used to call my nan. Means dad's mum in Norwegian and Swedish and what have you. And this is how they fit, and I'm very happy with the fit. I did kind of wing it. I thought I could do the mitten style where I kind of retain the fabric that the increased thumb gusset keeps and have it up here, but for some reason that didn't work here. I'm not sure why, so I took in lots of stitches here. So the thumb is a tad bit snug, but I quite like it. It stays on. It's very snug up here as well, but it's quite loose around here. Gives room for the colour work to get over your hand and all that stuff. And then I want to knit it further down. Obviously I can't just turn direction in colour work by picking up this provisional pink stuff here, so I will have to knit that bottom up and seam it together. I'm not going to write the pattern that way, don't worry. This is just my design process. It's a bit of a funny one sometimes. So I have cast it on. That's what I've been doing as of late. And gosh, the yarn is pulling a lot. So this is what we have. You can't see it. This doesn't make any sense. Gosh, I should have prepared this a little bit, I think. This is how much we got right now, and I've seemed to have worked up as much of the yellow as I possibly can, because there is a limit to how much yellow there is in this kit, and I do want to make sure that I am not using too much, because that's going to be a problem for me and everyone else. So let's see if I can just like put this on and show you how it will all add up. So this will go quite far down. I'm not sure if I'm going to do 1 flower repeat or 2. I'm obviously halfway through 1 flower right now, so I may add 2. There's already 1 down at the wrist here, so, and obviously that is very open to modification. You can just skip a flower repeat if you want. So it might be enough to just have 1 flower and then seam together. That seems to go down far enough for my taste, you know. So that's the thing that I hope to get out fairly soon in honor of my nan, because she was amazing. And I got this yarn in the mail the day she passed, and because it just seems like, I don't know, I feel like there's something about the look of this that is her. I don't know, that may just be in my head because of my brain, I don't know, but I like the idea, so it's the thing I'm hoping to get out soon. So I have picked up another whip. This is not from the priority pile, so I feel a bit naughty. It's just a thing that should be fairly quick to finish anyway, so maybe it's not so bad. I don't know. I just needed something very simple because I'd sat with this other project that we'll get to. And yeah, it's the Improv Sweater. It was gonna be kind of the doggy dress, which is in pickles pattern, but it didn't quite jive with me. And then I thought I could make another no frills, but that's not what I'm doing. I'm doing the Improv Sweater, but I'm taking a lot of wisdom from the no frill sweater because I do wear it an awful lot. It's always like lingering around somewhere in here because I keep taking it on and off depending on the temperature, and especially when I had a fever. Oh my god, it was so, that sweater was everything, because you know, you go cold and hot. Yeah, so the Improv Sweater is suddenly growing. It was just on the raglan yoke, if I can call it that, for a while, and now I've split for sleeve and body. And as you can see, I'm going very oversized here. I'm actually going less oversized than the doggy dress was recommending. That surprised me. I thought I was doing more. So I'm looking a bit at all measurements, but this is in the end a thing that I am creating pretty much from scratch, using the guidance from the French Association improv recipe, and just kind of going with the width that I want. And I become quite good at jotting down the stitch count and gauge to make the measurement that I want. So I think I'm looking into a 45 centimeter circumference upper sleeve and about 115 centimeter circumference chest measurement. And yeah, that is quite roomy, and it's a lot similar to the measurements from the size of the no frill sweater that I did. And I think, given how much I use that sweater, it only stands to reason that I need something that serves the same purpose, so I can rotate a little bit. And yeah, I'm using Pickles Merino Tweed, which is beautiful and tweedy, and I've never actually done a tweedy jumper before, so that is very exciting and nostalgic. And I love this kind of bloody red almost. It is kind of in the burgundy family, which probably doesn't shock anyone. It's just very pretty and I look forward to wearing it. It's quite soft. I think it will also even out a lot with a good soak, because this is a single ply. It's actually 2 single plies of merino non-superwash with little bits of tweed. So this is the yarn. But because it's non-superwash and because I am knitting those 2 strands together, it is a completely different beast than any other single ply merino sweater out there. So it will be quite strong. This is not weak yarn, and it's not particularly pilly either. So I am very, very optimistic about this yarn and about the sweater, and it's just going to be very cozy and snuggly. And yeah, I keep getting torn between being someone who enjoys making fairly intricate garments and fitted garments, but enjoy wearing the loose one, the simple ones that yeah, so I need to do both, basically, is the moral. Although I think this is the reason why I prefer yoke so much, because you can really go all the way in the yoke section with the color work, but in the body you just go fairly basic and wearable, and I love them. I really do love a good yoke. So yeah, we're gonna see more yokes on this channel. That's not even something I need to promise anyone, I don't think. So the yarn is living in this bag that my mom so generously sold me for my birthday. And yeah, just this is the Pickles yarn, Pickles Merino Tweed, and it's just really great. I like it. It's very similar to Debbie Bliss Donegal Tweed, except that has a bit of cashmere, but the balls look the same. There's the same colors. I mean, it's got a bit, it has to be the same mill, I think. And so it is that we are down to the last work in progress for this episode. And I did a cheeky cast on. I have no idea what I was thinking. Well, I know what I was thinking. I was looking at the Arctic Knitting podcast and saw that Emilia had finally cast on. I say finally because I had the goal of knitting this thing. She had cast on the Icelandic klukka dress. It is a Veris Jonsdottir design that is it's been in my mental knitting queue since my early knitting days, and it's beautiful and I want it. So I thought about, am I gonna order Let Lope yarn? I have so much yarn, I can't. And I thought, I have all this unspun Icelandic yarn, and you know what, they say that actually the unspun Icelandic yarn is Let Lope if you hold it double and spin it together so they become twisted, so you don't just get like half the meterage of this unspun yarn. I'll get back to that. But it's also because it's twisted together when it's plied, right? So that's what Let Lope is. It's 2 plies of Plystre Lope. But I looked it up and it's like, but it knits up to the same gauge, knitting single-stranded Plystre Lope and single-stranded Let Lope, even though Let Lope is 2 strands of Plystre Lope. So I decided I'm gonna do the dress in unspun Icelandic yarn, single ply, to the extent that we can even call this a ply. So let's just have a look at this yarn. I'm gonna be very careful with it. And I call it yarn. I shouldn't be. This isn't yarn. This is, this is roving. I am knitting with roving. It's nuts, but I'm enjoying it strangely, and it's becoming oddly normal to me. And I'm also quite surprised at how I'm not breaking this yarn. I broke it once because, I mean, let me show you. Let me just show you. Okay, just put this. Very careful not to tug anything without intending to. This is how it looks, right? It's completely unspun roving. Yeah, and this is how it breaks. I don't have to put in any force. This is like, it's roving, right? You see that? We're struggling with the focus. This is nothing new, just business as usual here. And so, I don't know if I should even do it this way. It's fragile. It's really fragile, but the thing is, yarn that breaks easily, it's just as easy to splice together again. I hardly have to put in any effort to do that, but I've only broken it once, even though I'm a extraordinarily tight knitter, which has led me into like thinking a lot about why am I a tight knitter, because I don't strain the yarn when I knit, you know. I don't hold a very, I didn't break this, you know, that's what I'm trying to say. I have a very loose but firm grip. I don't put in much force in my knitting, so I'm not sure where the tightness really comes from. I think maybe I'm just working very economically from a very sort of small area of the needle tips and the yarn and the finger and everything, because I'm not, as a tight knitter, I'm not having issues with this at all. And so yeah, there are lots of really good videos about how to work with this yarn on YouTube, but you don't really need to know that much. You just need to know that you need to have a gentle hand with it, that it doesn't take to that much tugging, and yeah, that's just the main thing to know. I do know that Patricia of P4 Chan on Instagram and Knitography on YouTube, she did a great video on knitting the Rusty Cardigan, which is something I definitely want to do in this yarn, and I have yarn for that. And there are some other good videos that you can just find by searching up Plystre Lope. And I decided to do the dress. Look how gorgeous that is. So I was so lucky to have a lovely, lovely, lovely viewer send me a tower of Plystre Lope, and that is what's being worked into this thing. So I worked through the entire lace section just to be done with it, because I was getting a bit fed up. And now there is a very short color work floral pattern at the hem, and then it's just stockinette, and it shouldn't actually take that long. But this pattern isn't particularly generous with its sizing. So what I did is that I wrote down all the measurements and stitch counts for the essential area. So for the cast on, so that's the hem, and for the waist, and for the bust measurement. And when I have the stitch count, I can take the gauge and know the measurements. And I saw that each size vary with the same stitch count. So I think it was like, I want to say 8 stitches. I may be making that up. So you add 8 stitches to make it the next size. So I just kept adding 8 stitches to these points in the dress until I had my size. I had to actually invent 3 bigger sizes to get to my size, which is kind of nuts, because I'm not so big that there shouldn't be sizes for me in the pattern, and I don't think it's right to call a 93 centimeter bust extra large. So I don't know, that is a little something, a little gripe I have with this particular pattern, but I am enjoying knitting it. And it's smelly though, and I am a notorious nail biter. I know that's awful, but when I do, my fingers taste funny when I knit with this, and I don't know if I want to know why that is. But yeah, a little close up. This is roving knit and lace, and it's working out surprisingly well. The yarn, if I can call it that, feels quite soft in these kind of plates, but once it knits up, you can feel the crunch. It is quite hard and needs quite a few soaks and wearing, I think, before this can be next to skin friendly. But this isn't going to be next to skin, it's going to be a skirt. So yeah, so I thought about what to do with the color work, what colors I wanted to add, and in the end went actually for a black background. So I'm borrowing a bit from the yarn I'm going to put into the Rusty Cardigan, and I'm hoping I will still have enough roving for that. But yeah, so it's a black background, but then I'm using the main color, this really deep, the deep color here for the leaves of the flowers, and then for the actual flowers I am using the hem color, the little kind of mauvey pink here. So the colors kind of show up both in the flowers and in the hem and the dress, because I wanted that, and I didn't think the other colors that I had maybe would do such a good job of doing that. So I'm using fewer colors than the design calls for, which I think is interesting. It's supposed to be a bit of a pop of color in the color work, but I guess I'm just going with something that's a bit more familiar. Yeah, so hoping to have a nice dress knit in unspun Icelandic yarn, which sounds like the craziest thing anyone could ever think of doing. So I'm doing it. It's just gonna be good for the times where I'm just like inconsolably freezing here in non-insulated London housing in the winter, and I know that the temperature is going to drop again soon, so that's going to be great for that. Just, it's basically, the idea I am having is just like, I like sitting under blankets, but sometimes I need to get up and I don't want to because the blanket's going to come off, and this is not going to be a blanket that comes off. It's going to be sat around my waist. It will be great. I am really excited to have it done, and all my plates, they fit into this amazing big canvas bag by Thimble Thread Makes. So there's quite a few of them in here, so it's like a bucket where it can all live and be very gently placed, because just I was kind of scared of actually showing you guys all this stuff on the podcast, because I'd worry that I'd be just like tugging the dress and be like, whoo, showing you, look at this, and then I'll be breaking the yarn, and that is actually not a big deal though, but I just didn't want to cause myself more trouble than it's worth. But yeah, it is very sticky yarn, and you just kind of put it together again, and it's just weird. But what was really weird was when I had sat and knitted this lace bit for a long time, and it just seemed very normal, and then I picked up that tweedy sweater, the Improv Sweater, and it just felt so weird to be knitting with yarn than roving. The yarn felt like cotton or something. It didn't feel like this the same thing. I'd gotten into a completely different mindset, because it was otherwise comparable with the needle size and gauge and everything. It was just that was odd. So I'm trying to get used to yarn again now. So we really only have acquisitions left, because I did go to the Unravel festival finally, but I do want to give you guys a video recommendation first. And I have touched upon earlier a few times, but especially in the last episode, that I don't want to be expected to do tutorials and kind of instruction type education. I like to be a sharer on this podcast. I'm very fortunate that I've been put in a situation now where I can share and inspire and share color work and tradition and the stuff that I like. but I don't have the capacity to be a instructor. I am terrible at making tutorials for the time being, and I just feel like right now I do not have time, and there are other people that do this better. And so I wanted to talk about someone who does this better, and it just came to me, this video yesterday, when Diana Walla, who is Paper Tiger here and there on the internet, and is a very prolific designer, and she's known for having been published by both Quince & Co and Pompom magazine, and is on top of that a American knitter who has lived in Norway and been greatly influenced by Norwegian knitting and loves Norwegian wool. And it's kind of like, yeah, whenever she puts up a video here on YouTube under Paper Tiger knitting, I think, I agree with everything. And for someone who's as opinionated as I am and feel like I'm a contrarian in any context, that's saying something. I feel like she just makes the videos I wish I'd made, that I maybe should have made, but I haven't because I really can't. And they're brilliant and wonderful and so informative and educating, and really bridges that gap between where a novice colorwork knitter is to where she's at. And I think that's really admirable, and they're great. So the latest video that she put out is on stranded colorwork, and it's great. So it just covers everything. It's like a Q&A format, so you can skip to the questions that you have, but I highly recommend going through the entire video and just soak it all up. It's great. And the focus of it as well, like she covers things like, you know, we've been talking about tension and dominance, and she really settles that argument. I think I've gone a bit back and forth with the last videos. I'm not given very clear answers. This video is the nail in the coffin there. It's the last thing that you need. I think it's great the way she outlines it and says very briefly the thing about having bad tension and different tensioned yarn is a different thing than the dominance effect you get by having the yarn placed in a different order, the way you knit color work. And she demonstrates that in a way that was kind of illuminating to me as well. I mean, it definitely was, and really got across, I think, well, a lot of you guys also pitched in the comment section below previously. So it's just really good. And yeah, it's great at making that distinction between, yeah, bad tension and actual dominance effect that is kind of not, it's inevitable, but also saying this is not essential colorwork knowledge. You can knit colorwork brilliantly and for a long time without knowing about any of this stuff, which, you know, here's an evidence for that, because clearly I'm not that educated on the matter either. So it's great for that. She just covers everything. Like, there was nothing I was like, but you didn't mention that, and that wasn't quite there, and that was everything. It's great. So link to that below. Definitely recommend checking it out. It should cover really everything that anyone's ever wanted from me demonstrating color work in a video. She quite frankly does a way better job of it than I ever would, so you should definitely check it out. So good. I think I made that very clear now. And I'm sort of having lots of thoughts about the videos that Arne and Carlos have put up lately about how we knit color work in Norway, and I was kind of, I go back and forth. I sometimes feel like, oh yeah, this is stuff I want to share, it's really good and I really agree, and then other times I'm just like, huh? No, we don't. So it's been a few times actually, especially as of late, where they say that this is how we do it in Norway. I'm like, I've never ever seen anyone knit color work like that in Norway. Sorry. So I don't know, maybe they are going based on how people used to do it, because I've never seen two-handed color work in Norway ever. People hold the yarn over the left hand index finger generally. Maybe they also involve the second finger and do something there. A lot of people will let go of one yarn and pick up the other. That is totally valid, and I think, yeah, like Diana says in her video as well, like that's how she knitted color work for years, and I did too. It took a long time before I could hold both yarns over the same finger. I would let go of one and pick up the other, and yeah, it's slow, but it totally works, and I think it's a completely valid way of knitting. And in the end, you know, there's no right or wrong, as long as your end result becomes what you want it to be. That is really what matters, and that is, like, if there's one thing I could say, that is the crux of it all. So that's a recommendation I can wholeheartedly give you. And now let's get into the acquisitions. I am boiling fine garn from Norway. It's warm. It's very warm. I admire people who can podcast in their female knits. Like, Amy, how do you do it? You have two studio lamps even. Like, how? Yeah. Unravel. I managed to go to Unravel. I was sure I wouldn't be able to because I was so ill on Friday. But when I woke up on Saturday, I was like, I'm okay. And I don't know what was wrong with me because I didn't have any cold symptoms. You know, I wasn't sneezing or congested or anything. I just had a fever. I think it was my tonsils. So got some hand sanitizer, just went about it because I figured I don't want to get anyone sick, but I also want to go. So I went shopping. So I met up with a bunch of people, lovely viewers, and also fellow podcasters such as Amy and Mina. That was nice. And I shopped, and I think we just need to jump straight into that. Although I also want to like just tease everyone by just saying I have some really interesting stuff in the works again. It's like I hinted about a lot of these things before and I haven't been able to tell you, and I was like one of those things again where I'm like, that thing is going to happen soon and that thing is the thing I'm hoping to get into a collaboration, and that's the thing that's coming in the mail, so I'm going to collaborate on. And it's like, it's all happening and it's very exciting, and I don't know how I'm going to have time to sleep and eat and all that stuff that I guess it's necessary. So yes, haul. I will have to start with stuff I got before Unravel. I like doing things chronologically, so we're just gonna have to deal with that. I went to the Wild and Woolly Knit Night, like I told you, and I was sat next to the sock yarn. I got my mum into sock knitting recently, and she picked up a skein that looked a lot like this, except that had Arne and Carlos written on it, and this is Keifa set. And those colors seem to be running out maybe, so I had to get this one because the colors are me all over, and I seem to have gotten into self-striping yarn lately, and I really do love Regia. I think they're very sturdy, high quality sock yarn. It's nice, I find it springy and soft, and I mean, it might be by Desert Island sock yarn, either that or maybe West Yorkshire Spinners or Opal, I don't know, but it's good stuff. This is very crinkly. I don't remember showing you this. I may have, because I got this actually, I think it was like the day before I went to Norway recently. I picked it up on eBay actually. It's JC Rennie yarn. It's a DK lamb's wool and cashmere that was for £30. I don't remember talking about this. I may have. I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but for transparency, I have to show you 10 balls of this. It was all £30. Lamb's wool and cashmere, DK, red. I mean, hopefully you don't blame me there. I know I have no business of adding to my sweater quantity stash. But I mean, guys, honestly. So yeah, I can rationalize this one way or the other, but yeah. It's been really tempting to actually cast this on into maybe like that wonderful green cardigan that Carrie Westerman put in a recent book, A Thing of Paper. I mean, yeah, no, I don't have time right now. I really want to though, but yeah, it's surprisingly not as soft as I'd expect, but I think this is a yarn that's just going to transform with one soak. I really am getting that feel of this yarn. It just needs a soak. Now, the other thing I got was when I'd woken up on Friday with that awful fever. I'd actually also forgotten in my fever haze to connect my phone to the charger, so there was nothing waking me up but the postman. And the postman, it's not the first time he's running into me in my dressing gown. This is the British way of life, apparently. He had this parcel for me, and I was like, I'm pretty sure this time I didn't order yarn. Pretty sure. You can never know, but it certainly feels like yarn. I knew I had ordered like a small standing thing for my tablet, but this isn't that. I think it would be a bit ridiculous to wrap it up this well, and it was yarn. So of course it's yarn, that's what I'm showing you. It's a whole huge, enormous, ridiculous sweater quantity of Gynt. I kind of knew this was coming because I had talked to this person who wanted to give me this stuff, but I thought it was a forgotten thing because we'd both been very busy, but no, here it is. Gynt, you guys. You know how much I love this yarn. I worked up this yarn, actually this exact colour, that one from Lily of Nordic Stitches when she had a knit along. I worked into the hat designed by Diana Walla from Pompom, and I loved it. I mean, I always love this yarn, but it just all came back to me how wonderful it is. It is by Sumness, and it's pretty much one of their very few yarns that is 100% Norwegian. They do still have their production in Norway, but they don't focus so much on Norwegian fleece. They focus more on yarn softness and getting merino and alpaca from elsewhere. And so this Gynt yarn is a true Norwegian yarn that I really hope they never stop making, because it's wonderful. And so I'm planning on making a full-on colorwork cardigan. If you ever seen the cardigan I wear in the cabin, it's essentially that, but that was a cardigan that my grandmother made for my mum, and I would really like to make one for myself that is not in superwash yarn. Although I have to say Dale Folk superwash yarn is actually fairly good for a superwash. So here's a little clip of Ellie of the future, who was sat down and looking at her video files that she just recorded, only to find out that one of the files were broken. So I'm just like putting this in here where I'm actually going to cover most of the unravel haul, because that disappeared and we can't have that. So I was talking about the yarn I had gotten beforehand, whereas now I will have to talk about the yarn I got at Unravel again. So of course I got a bunch of yarn from Amy of Stranded Dyeworks and the Stranded podcast. And before I show you the yarn, actually, I just want to say that, I mean, I've gotten frequent updates of how Amy's been working very hard to make that booth a thing. And now that I finally got to see it in person, I've never seen a yarn in person before, but that booth in particular, like, oh my god, she's put in so much work and effort into that. You can't really, not even I can fully appreciate that, even though, yeah, no, let's look at the yarn. So I got no less than 4 skeins. 4 skeins. Neutrals and colours. And you know, when I get neutrals and colours, I think you can pretty much guess what I'm about to do with it, but I'll leave that up to guesswork. But yes, all of these are on the Fjord base, which is her high twist BFL nylon yarn, which I think is just the perfect sock yarn in so many ways, because both BFL, the high twist and the nylon adds strength and durability to the socks, which I love, and it looks great, feels good too. So I got first Frost, which I think will go really well with Anti-Valentine, which is her limited edition kind of once a year February yarn. Yes, that was one combination, and the other combination I'm thinking of is Legless Flamingo with Smoked. So yeah, very happy to have these. Amy, you're brilliant. So kind of, it's not that bad that I have to record this over again. Couldn't be bothered to put up the studio lights again, because I thought I was done and I have to go to work. But yes, I actually did just buy yarn from one other booth at Unravel. That's right. I did look at the lovely yarns and go, I will see you guys at Edinburgh. So, but there was one where I couldn't really help myself, and that was Garthenor. And I always wanted to get some Garthenor yarn, because that's right up my alley, and certainly these yarns were. So here we have a natural white and a natural black. And maybe, yeah, unbleached whites aren't that uncommon, but undyed blacks certainly are. I'm having a hard time finding this in Norway, actually. I pretty much only know of Sarvespinidi that does that. And it's kind of more like a brown, but dark enough to pass as black in a pair of, say, Selby mittens, for instance. And I think this yarn is going to be perfect. It's a 50 gram, both of these are 50 grams, and they have 210 meters each, and they are, you know, the usual 2-ply woolen spun yarn that I like. So I'm just going to give you a close up. There we are. So yeah, really love them. I think they will fit right into my stash with all the yarny friends that they're now going to go make. And so yeah, I did pretty well when it came to yarn. Maybe not so well when it came to Pompom. So how did this happen? Well, first of all, I actually got this one at Wild and Woolly. Not my favorite issue of Pompom really, but a friend of mine actually got published in it, and which is a great pattern, and also it was cheaper. They've reduced the price. There might be some issues left there, so it could be worth having a look if that's something you are looking for. And I also got the latest Pompom in the mail because I've subscribed, and I picked up these 6 at their booth at Unravel. So that would be issue 19, issue 17, issue 13, issue 16, and 15 and 9. And so it's pretty much the issues that are older than that I'm now lacking. So I mean, if anyone out there wants to part with their older issues, I mean, we could probably work something out. But yeah, I am very happy to kind of have a bigger collection now. It's a bit weird, but yeah, I'm very fond of Pompom, and I'm very impressed with what they've done and what they've achieved and how they have changed the knitting, whatever we are, community, industry, what have you. I think that's very impressive, and I'm very happy to be part of supporting that. And they had a pretty good deal. I did not pay full price for pretty much any of those, well, maybe like one or two of them, so they were at reduced price because they're older. So that is pretty much how I afforded that. And yeah, I am now going to segue into the clip that I had originally where I'm talking about how the battery died, because I'm pretty sure that's how the first file got corrupted. So now I'll see you in the past again. So my battery died without actually telling me that it was about to die, so this may or may not be a more awkward transition than usual. But I was talking about how Knit With Attitude are featuring more and more Norwegian products, and I'm going to get to the thing that I bought, but I want to also tell you that they are selling garn suit, and garn suit is really interesting because it is a kind of collaboration project with immigrant women in Oslo that are dyeing yarn, and they are really bringing something completely new to the dye scene, because they are not on Instagram and looking at other dyers, you know, they have their complete different ideas from their culture and the aesthetic that come along with those cultures to show completely different yarn color combinations, and it's really quite a special project. But more than anything, the colors you get are priceless, but you also get to support a very essential integration project that really, you know, what better way to integrate than to tell women who are coming to Norway about just how important yarn is in Norway. I think that is brilliant. So I really think it's a great effort. I've seen them pop up in yarn festivals, you know, they were huge at Oslo Knitting Festival, and it's great to see that you can get them here locally in London. So if you pop up to Knit With Attitude, there is lots of it there, and they will also be at Edinburgh Yarn Festival with that yarn. They will have Nina Petrina yarn and garn suit, and also what I bought, which is Plystre bag. It's a Plystre bag that is it's called the Plystre bag. So this is how you write that. If you have some focus, oh look at that, focus right away, amazing. So Plystre means whistle, not sure why it's called that, but the bag is flippin' fabulous. So look at that. So this is like, I was talking last episode actually how I wasn't quite on the market for canvas bags because they're quite above my budget. I was actually just pleasantly surprised that I could afford this, and they have it at Knit With Attitude, and I'm pretty sure they're going to be bringing this for Edinburgh as well. And I did manage to enable quite a few to buy this at Unravel, so you might have to be at their booth a bit early to get hold of them, but I don't know, maybe they have plenty. So this is what they look like, and I kind of picture it as like Fringe Supply meets Fjellreven, you know, the really popular hipster rucksacks that people are walking about with, that like my grandfather used to have in the 50s, and now they're cool all of a sudden. I don't know. So you can find them at plystre.no or hashtag Plystre project bag. So this is a project bag made for knitters. It's great quality. I've got no complaints. It doesn't seem like anything is about to ever fall apart here. I think it's going to be like a generation type thing. That's amazing. And has a front pocket, and that is quite the generous front pocket. I mean, it's pretty good. So you could, I don't think actually I'll be using this as a project bag. I think I'll be using this as a project bag because it's that big. I can put my notions bag here in the front, and in here I have actually two pockets. There's the front pocket that is quite kind of tight. It doesn't have any bottom spacing, if that makes sense, but the main pocket is the entire bag, right? Which has a square bottom, which we always love, especially in canvas bags. And yeah, I could fit several project bags in here. It does also come with these holes that you can put yarn through if you prefer keeping those strands separate. I preferably don't, but yeah. And there are more pockets. Oh my god, the pockets here as well. So there's this pocket-orama here, and yes, of course, I had to get the burgundy one. That's not really anything I need to explain, I don't think. It's easy to tie up. The canvas is quite flexible already, and then you just tie a knot and it's beautiful and I love it. I'm so glad I have it and very, very happy to be talking about it here. I picked up very quickly when I was in Norway, both for Christmas and just now, how popular this bag has become very quickly. People were having it, bringing it to knitting meetups, and it was really quite the latest thing, and I'm quite happy to be supporting a Norwegian product that is of this high of a quality and let you guys know about it and how you can get it. It's not something I'm always able to do, so that's pretty good. And yeah, it's basically a rucksack, except that it comes with a strap that you carry like this. I think it's the right length as well. It's just, yeah, good stuff all around. We'll be sure to just stuff it with knitting projects. It might end up being where my huge colorwork cardigan that I got pair Gynt yarn for, where that ends up living. So that is the last thing that I bought at Unravel. I think that was a pretty contained purchase. Yeah, I fit everything into that bag, so that is a pretty nice unit of measurement to know that I didn't go quite overboard. Though I have to admit, I did look at a lot of booths and go, yeah, I'll see you at Edinburgh. Like, I mean, the little grey sheep, Coop Knits. What else am I looking for? I don't know, there are lots of good stuff there. Opus yarn. I already have Opus yarn, but I'm still like going, oh, Opus yarn. So Edinburgh's gonna be rough. Someone needs to restrain me, but yes. And I also actually received some yarn from Blackie Yarn, because those of us who have podcast passes, which I've also received, because there's like big mean laminate here, which is subtle. I also got some yarn that I will be reviewing for them. I guess that's kind of a thing that we do in exchange for the passes, that we have to kind of do this little review job for them, and I've said I'm happy to do that because this yarn is already wonderful. This is not my review. Part of the review is also swatching with it, giving it a soak in a wash and see how it kind of holds up a bit, kind of like, you know, the reviews that you get on Knit British, the podcast. And I already love it. I want to give you like an upfront thing about this yarn, is that it's great. This is Jacob yarn, and I've been told by so many that Jacob yarn is a bit hard, and I felt some Jacob yarn, and yeah, it's been. This is not. This is great. I love this. I will have this next to skin. Totally. I love it. It's a 2-ply rustic wool. I believe this is 4-ply. It's just right up my alley. It's like a more lustrous finial in a way. So I look forward to reviewing that. I hope I'll get around to swatching with it soon. And yeah, that's the thing that they will be launching at Edinburgh Yarn Festival, I think. So that's exciting. And that is all I have for you guys today. I think my show notes are out, and so I think I need to be going out because I'm running out of focus and time, and I need to go to work because I have a meeting. So yeah, it was lovely talking to you guys. I hope you're all doing well, and I really enjoyed seeing those of you who I saw at Unravel, and I hope to see a lot of you at Edinburgh. And yeah, just happy knitting, and thanks for watching. Bye.